Hey everyone, today we'll be counting down the top 10 Ubers in battlecats. Any Ubers on this list are just Ubers that are really strong in the meta right now, however this could change in the future. Keep in mind that this is all just my opinion, so if there are any placements that you disagree with, feel free to leave constructive criticism in the comments below. Just make sure to keep it friendly. This video took significant time to create, so it'd be nice if you could like the video and even subscribe. With all that said and done, let's get straight into it. Cassidy takes a spot as number 10 on my list, an amazing unit capable of dealing damage and controlling crowds. She has a 50% chance to knock back traded enemies, 100% chance to create a level 2 surge attack between 400 and 700 range, and immune to waves, weaken, and curse. She also has 375 attack range, however with stepping stone she can reach up to 675 range, which is quite impressive. Her knockback ability is the main strength of Cassidy. While yes, her knockback can cause enemies to reposition, which is a bad thing, trust me, with good timing, Cassidy can be a devastating crowd controller. Her knockback combined with her surge means that if luck is on your side, she can deny enemies the ability to attack or even move forward. Her DPS is also quite good, having around 9k DPS with her surge. Keep in mind that due to knockback, she can deal much less damage at the cost of crowd control. If her surge knocks back the enemies, it means she'll do less damage, but you'll be able to knock back the enemy, which means it could be good. The only reason why she isn't higher on this list is that her knockback can be kind of inconsistent. If you are unlucky enough, the enemy unit may be able to unleash an attack. Cassidy's HP isn't the best, being around 50k with around 5 knockbacks, so a strong enough attack does have the potential to one-shot her or do devastating damage. Still, she still proves to be an amazing damage dealer and crowd controller, placing her spot at number 10 on my list. One-eyed Asuka. I'm just gonna call her Asuka. I think Asuka barely beats out normal Cassidy to take number 9 on this list. Asuka has some very similar stats or traits to Dark Cassidy, as she is a clone. She has a 100% chance to curse enemies for 2.5 seconds. Keep in mind this is less than Dark Cassidy's. Colossus Slayer, Eva Angel Killer, and immune to freeze, slow, and toxic. Her curse as her pretty good generalist DPS means that she can be a very consistent unit on most stages. She also stands out as one of the best Eva Angel counters and Colossus counters due to her Eva Angel Killer and Colossus Slayer, making her superior compared to the other Cassidys in these categories. Unfortunately, she is not higher on the list due to mainly being inferior to a certain unit, which we won't name. She has lower health, DPS, knockback count, and curse time than this certain unit. However, if this certain unit exists, she can be a much higher on this list. Her range is higher, but this can be a double-edged sword, as it can lead to missing some of that surge damage that can make the Cassidy so broken. However, make no mistake, Cassidy is a broken unit for sure with her DPS, debuffs, and specialist qualities. It's just that a certain unit prevents her from going up higher up this list. However, she still stands out as an amazing Uber and number 9 on my list. Kronos is a very simple unit, but a very good one at that. She's placing her spot on number 8 on my list. She is one of the Ubers on this list that I use quite frequently. She has multi-hit with a 100% chance to freeze traded enemies. Altogether, her multi-hit freezes enemy units for 3 seconds, which is amazing coverage. Now keep in mind that there are gaps in between her attacks, so it's 1 second of freeze I believe, and then 1 second gap, 1 second of gap, 1 second one. You get it. Her survivability is also quite decent, although not as good as units such as Mitama. She has 3 knockbacks with 51,000 HP, which is pretty good. It gives her enough HP and enough wiggle room to reposition, and overall is just a very good support unit. She also has pretty good synergy with other crowd controllers such as Cyberpunk. And that's all there really is to it. She's just an amazing crowd controller. Very simple unit, very simply amazing. Since a steady rise from a couple years back, Kronos now comfortably rests on number 8 on my list. Sirius, I'll just call her Sirius. Sirius is an Uber that has appeared out of nowhere for me, coming in at number 7 on my list. She is an anti-traded that is strong against traded enemies, Colossus Slayer, and immune to knockback, freeze, slow, warpen, curse, and toxic. She follows the trend of generals with amazing DPS to back it up. She has 131k HP versus traded with around 7.6k DPS. This is all the way from 430 range. These are some very strong stats for a generalist. However, then you factor in her recharge time. 77 seconds is a very, very short time for those kinds of stats, and is what really pushes her for being overpowered. This supports her amazing stats with recyclability, which is always a good thing, as seen by units like Balrock or Awakened Bahamut, Cassidy. Additionally, she has Colossus Flare, making her one of, if not the best anti-Colossus Uber in the game. This is also strengthened by the fact that there are a lack of anti-Colossus at this point, as they're a fairly new trait. This gives her the ability to counter most of the barons with solid effectiveness. Her recyclability, combined with her amazing stats, is what makes her an amazing generalist, and generalists are doing very well in the meta right now, which is shown by Sirius dominating the meta, at number 7 on my list. While overrated in my opinion, Balrock is still an exceptionally strong Uber, well earning his spot at number 6 on this list. The Uber Can Balrock is known for his outstanding DPS and low cost and recharge time. He is absolutely broken with his 28,000 DPS and immune to weakness. Quote-unquote balanced by a single target, which does restrict him on some stages, let's be sure, actually on all stages. Sometimes it's more heavily restricting than others, but however these stats are simply just too powerful. This might seem alright, but his talents take him to a whole new level. His attack up talent, attack buff, and his cost down basically makes him a cheap, recyclable, single target nuker. Imagine what he's like on boss stages. Aside from Cyberpunk, Balrog is the best investment for any talent, maybe even beating Cyberpunk, taking an already good Uber to an absolutely game-breaking unit. And really, that's all there is to it. Very simple unit, very straightforward, just high DPS recyclability, just like Can, Uber Can, what can I say? And so he sits at number 6 on my list. D'Artagnan comes into number 5 onto this list as the best anti-trait list in the game, comfortably beating out his traded counterpart, D'Artagnan. He has around 5k base DPS with plus massive damage to traitless enemies and strengthens by 100% at 60% health. This is coupled by his 200 to 550 effective range, fast movement speed, and pretty good recharge time, along with good survivability thanks to his 91,800 HP and 5 knockbacks, which is pretty good for... I expected his HP to be much lower, but I guess I was wrong. His stats are already superior to his traded counterpart, but that's before you consider his strengthen. At 60% health, his DPS doubles, going from 20k DPS to traitless to 40k, which is more than Awakened Bahamut, while having good survivability and sitting at a much further distance. This pure DPS is enough to decimate most traitless stages. Not to mention that his stats aren't even that bad with dealing with traded enemies, keeping him a viable option on mixed stages where slots are precious. It's just another one of these Ubers where they're amazing DPS and just amazing stats in general, just push him up there. Like, he doesn't have any like special debuffs, he's just DPS, and by far the best anti-traitless in the game, pure anti-traitless at least. D'Artagnan is the staple of battlecats Ubers and well deserves number 5 on this list. A surprising change from a year or two ago, Mitama is no longer dominating the Ubers list, but rather sits at number 4, which is still quite impressive. Mitama is another anti-traded generalist known for her amazing debuffs. She's kinda like a better version of Kronos, sorta. She has a 100% chance to slow traded enemies for 3.33 seconds with multi-hit, meaning she hits 3 times I believe. Her slow combined with her resistance, which makes her HP good with her amazing repositioning, 15 knockbacks means that she can live for a very, very long time before finally dying, I guess. Her debuffs can give breathing room to your units and allow your meat shields to regenerate and kind of like, restock. Her survivability, once again, is an amazing part of her appeal. Just her knockbacks, her resistance, and her HP is just amazing. The only reason why I think she fell off the list is that there were just a bunch of Ubers that just saw a rise. 3 Ubers. I don't want to spoil anything. It's just that. However, she is useful throughout all of the game, shining particularly into mid-game to some parts of late game. Although not the undisputed best Uber in the game anymore, Mitama comfortably rests at number 4 on this list. Very, very good Uber. Well deserved. Moving on to what I like to call the podium Ubers, at number 3 we have Photon, an amazing anti-traded. He has massive damage to traded and is immune to waves and surge. His first form is kind of like Housewife, being a semi-spammable unit and one of the best in the game. He has amazing DPS versus his target trait, traded. To put his DPS into perspective, let's compare him to Kazajizo. So first off, his recharge time is a lot slower. However, the value for his cost is insane, much better than Kazajizo's. Kazajizo has around 122 base DPS and Photon has 104 base DPS. However, Kazajizo only has massive damage to Black's Angels while Photon has massive damage to Traded. He's also faster and has a much higher attack range. That's just crazy. Remember everybody going insane over Kazajizo? Well, Photon's just another to the list that simply outclasses him, except for Blacks and Angels, of course. But that's just the beginning. His second form is where his true strength shows. So to understand his DPS, we have to first understand how his attack works. He has multi-hit, and his attack is built so that you can only hit 1 or 2 hits at a time. This is because there are 3 parts to his attack. The first attack hits 250 to 650 range. The second hit hits 450 to 850 range, and his third hit 590 to 1000 range. That means that he can hit a huge portion of the battlefield, which is just insane. He does have a pretty long force swing, but this is mostly covered by his range of 600, which let me tell you is pretty crazy for his DPS. Let's talk about his DPS. Depending on how many times you hit the target, if you hit it once, he has nearly 5.6k DPS. And if you hit him, the enemy, twice, he has 11.3 DPS versus Traded. For his effective range of 250 to 1000, that is insane. Even just dealing 5.6k DPS is enough, but even if he only hits one attack, 5.6k DPS from 250 to 1000 range is an insane coverage and an insane DPS. But then you have the chance to double it and make it 11.2 or 11.3 DPS. That's just crazy. Like, that's insane. And let's talk about his standing range too, 600. A unit that has 600 standing range is Aphrodite. He has the same standing range as Aphrodite and can hit up to 1000 range. With that DPS, that's just crazy. He's an amazing anti-traded. Yeah, those pure stats is what just makes him so good. Just an amazing unit and well deserving of number 3 on my list. Number 2 on the podium and number 2 on my list, Dark Phono. Unlike Phono, Dark Phono does not get on his list for his amazing DPS, but rather something else. Unlike Phono, he does not have a first form, but however, like Phono, he has fantastic base stats. Take everything I said about Phono in his range, Dark Phono is very similar. The only difference is that Dark Phono has 500 standing range. His first attack does 200 to 550 range, his second attack does 400 to 750, and his third attack does 490 to 900 attack. He does have 100 less range than Phono, but he also has 50 more inner range, meaning he has less of a blind spot. However, unlike Phono, he spawns a mini surge between 400 and 1100 range, meaning he can actually hit further than Phono sometimes. Because of this randomness of his surge, it can be very, very difficult to calculate his exact DPS. Remember, he has a 3-part multi-hit, but can only hit 2 attacks max. If he hits 1 base attack with no surge, his DPS will be around 2.3k, which is still quite good for his range. Actually, no, it's not. What am I talking about? It's okay. But like Phono, if he hits 2 attacks and 2 surges, this number doubles to 5.6k DPS, which is pretty amazing, considering he can hit from 200 to 1100 range. His survivability is pretty good as well, having around 57k HP with 5 knockbacks, so while not as broken as Phono, his DPS is still quite good for a long distance unit. However, the real strength comes from his slow. This is the good part, his slow. He has a 100% chance to slow all enemies for 2 seconds and immune to waves, curse, and surge. All enemies. Metal, relic, traitless, no one is safe. This is something even Mitama can't compete with, as she can't slow traitless. And while Mitama's slow is longer, she can't hit up to 1100 range. Generalists with high damage are quite good in the meta, and that's what Dark Phono is, but then you combine his DPS with his range and his insane debuffs, yeah, he's absolutely broken. Phonos is just crazy at this point. Dark Phono well deserves his number 2 spot on my list. Just an amazing unit. Number 1 on the podium and number 1 on my list, we have Dark Cassidy. Dark Cassidy is the best Uber in the game, just being a fantastic generalist. Let's take this one a little more slowly. Let's start with her DPS. At first it might seem low with 2900 DPS, but then you have to remember her surge. This bumps her DPS up to an unbelievable 11.6k DPS, all the way from 400 range. To put this into a comparison, Aphrodite has 13.6 DPS versus aliens, and that's her specialist trait. Dark Cassidy has 11.6k DPS to all traits, except for technically metal, I guess. Granted, there's a difference in standing range, but still, that's not a big deal. Next, let's talk about her curse. While curse isn't exactly the best debuff, Dark Cassidy makes it work in a way just amazingly. She just makes it work. She has 100% uptime, meaning that as long as she does not get interrupted during her attack, the enemies will always be cursed, with no gaps in between. I don't know if I explained that well, but oh well. Her curse ironically disables curse, making her a great counter to relic enemies who disable your crowd controllers, which gives her great synergy with other crowd controllers. She also can counter enemy debuffers, provided she can outrange them. Using Stepping Stone, she can hit up to 700 range, which is enough to outrange enemies such as Henry, Mr. Mole, and Taki. From my experience, it's kind of difficult to time it right so that she doesn't get knocked back, especially when they're stacked, but still, theoretically, she can outrange them. So on top of being an amazing damage dealer, she can be a great debuffer as well. She is also immune to waves, weaken, warp, curse, and surge, making her a great counter to surge and wave enemies. Dark Cassidy is one of the Ubers on the list that I use very, very frequently. Dark Cassidy can prove time and time again that she can be a very consistent generalist and serve many purposes throughout all stages of the game, especially showing her strength in late game, as her curse disables other curse, relics. And then there's her immunities: immune to waves, warp, weaken, curse, and surge. Her immune to waves and surge makes her one of the best anti-surge and waves, perhaps the best anti-surge Uber in the game. Her pretty good survivability with around 78k HP with 5 knockbacks. Her slow speed, which you might think is a bad thing, but means that she doesn't just rush in and die. She can take her time and allow you to stack up meat shields to protect her. Her recharge time isn't amazing, but it's still quite good, and especially considering these stats, it's definitely not like a big deal. The only thing that isn't amazing about her is her cost. It's a little much, but for the value that she brings, it is most definitely worth it. And she's just a fantastic Uber, just so versatile. She's not restricted to one trait. She's not restricted to 2 traits. She's not even restricted to traded. She can deal damage consistently and curse enemies from every single trait. Well, except metal, I guess. And because of this amazing versatility, she's been dominating the meta for a while now, and it's likely to stay that way for a while at least. Yeah, well deserving of my #1 spot on my list. Just an amazingly broken Uber. And if you get her, well, good job. Game becomes so much easier. Watch her get knocked out like me time of the year when there's a new Uber Fest and Epic Fest Uber. Oh, Kronos. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you finish this video, that means you watch the whole thing. Hopefully you didn't just skip to the end. And if you did, thank you. That supports my channel, helps with my channel watch time, which, if you didn't know, is very good for the algorithm. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know that you're going to disagree with some things. Like, it's pretty natural to not disagree with everything someone says, especially when it comes to something like this, which can be controversial. And if you disagreed with something, I don't mind constructive criticism in the comments below, or even your recommendations of Ubers where you've been on there. What Ubers did I miss? Like, do you think this Uber should be added? This Uber should be added? Let me know in the comments. I'm also thinking of doing other YouTube videos and sort of expanding into other categories of YouTube of gaming, not just battlecats. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below, but tell me if there's any games in particular, like Bloons TD maybe, and Subway Surfers, I don't know. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, thanks for your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!